Here's a number that should stop you cold. A database startup most people have never heard of just got valued at $10.5 billion. The company is called Supabase, and on June 4th they raised $500 million in a single funding round. But the money isn't the shocking part. The shocking part is why. Investors aren't betting on a clever database. They're betting on a phrase that didn't exist 2 years ago: vibe coding. So what on earth is vibe coding? Picture this. Instead of a programmer typing out thousands of lines of code by hand, they just describe what they want in plain English to an AI. Build me an app that tracks my workouts, and the AI writes the code. The human barely touches a keyboard. They steer, the machine builds. That's the vibe. You feel your way to a working app instead of grinding through syntax. And here's the connection to Supabase. When an AI spins up an app in minutes, that app still needs somewhere to store its data. Logins, messages, photos, orders. Supabase is the place all that lives. So as millions of people start building apps by vibe, every single one of those apps needs a Supabase behind it. They've quietly become the plumbing under an entire new way of making software. A boring database company turned into one of the hottest names in tech, almost overnight. But how did a tool for engineers become the backbone of an AI gold rush? And here's where it gets interesting. To understand why this matters, you have to rewind to how software used to get made. For decades, building an app was brutally hard. You needed to learn a programming language, the way you'd learn French or Mandarin, years of practice. Then you needed to understand databases, servers, security, and a dozen other moving parts. The barrier was so high that having an idea meant nothing. Execution was everything, and execution took a team of specialists and piles of cash. Supabase launched in 2020 with a simple pitch. Take the hardest, most annoying back-end parts, the database, user logins, file storage, and make them work out of the box. Developers loved it because it saved them weeks, but it was still a tool for people who already knew how to code. Then, around 2024, everything shifted. AI coding assistants got genuinely good. Tools like Cursor and Claude could suddenly write working software from a plain description. A term coined by AI researcher Andrej Karpathy, vibe coding, went viral. Suddenly people who'd never written a line of code were shipping real apps in an afternoon. And here's the quiet thing nobody planned. Those AI tools needed a back end they could plug into automatically, and Supabase fit perfectly. The AI could set up the whole database itself, no human required. Demand didn't just grow, it exploded. The company went from a developer favorite to the default engine for an entire generation of AI-built apps. But the numbers behind that explosion are even crazier than they sound. Let's get into the actual numbers, because they are staggering. That $500 million round values Supabase at $10.5 billion. To put that in perspective, just a year earlier, the company was valued at around $2 billion. That's roughly a 5-fold jump in 12 months, the kind of leap that normally takes a decade, if it happens at all. The round was led by some of the biggest names in venture capital, the same investors who backed the early giants of the cloud era. So what are they actually buying? Think of Supabase like the electrical grid for apps. You don't see it, you don't think about it, but flip a switch and the lights come on. Every AI-built app that needs to remember anything, who you are, what you saved, who you messaged, taps into that grid. And here's the mechanical detail that makes it special. Because Supabase is built on a widely used open standard called Postgres, the AI assistants already understand it. They don't need to be taught. So when you tell an AI, build me a marketplace app, it reaches for Supabase the way you'd reach for a light switch without thinking. That automatic, invisible default position is worth a fortune. It means Supabase rides on top of every coding tool without lifting a finger to win each customer. The more people vibe code, the more Supabase grows with almost no extra effort. But this raises an obvious and uncomfortable question. Here's the twist nobody expected. Let's make this concrete with real examples, because vibe coding sounds like magic until you see it in action. Imagine a school teacher who's frustrated that there's no simple app to track which students return their library books. In the old world, she'd be stuck, hire a developer for thousands of dollars, or give up. Today, she opens an AI coding tool, types "I want an app where I can check off returned books by class," and within 20 minutes she has a working app, with a real database behind it storing every record. That database is Supabase, Or picture a small bakery owner who wants online ordering. He describes his menu, his delivery zones, his hours. The AI builds the storefront, sets up the payment flow, and quietly creates a Supabase database to hold every order that comes in. He never sees a line of code. Then there are the solo founders, one person building what used to take a team of 10. There are now stories of individuals running apps with thousands of users, all stitched together by AI, all sitting on Supabase. One developer reportedly launched a product to over 10,000 users without hiring a single engineer. That's the real revolution here. It's not that coding got faster. It's that coding stopped being a barrier at all. The bottleneck moved from "can you build it" to "do you have a good idea?" And when you remove the bottleneck for millions of people at once, you get an explosion. But that explosion has a dark side most coverage ignores. So how does Supabase stack up against the alternatives, and why did it win? For years, the dominant player in this space was a Google-owned service called Firebase. It did something similar, handle the back end, so developers didn't have to. But Firebase locked you into Google's world, using its own unusual way of storing data that nothing else quite understood. Supabase made a different bet. It built on Postgres, open database standard that's been trusted for almost 30 years and runs some of the biggest systems on Earth. Think of it like the difference between a custom-built road only one brand of car can drive on versus a standard highway every vehicle already knows how to use. When the AI revolution arrived, that choice paid off enormously. The AI models had already studied millions of examples of Postgres. They spoke its language fluently. Firebase's custom approach, far less familiar to the machines. So when an AI assistant had to pick a back end on its own, it naturally reached for the one it understood best. There's a beautiful irony here. Supabase made a deeply unfashionable, almost boring technical choice, used the old reliable standard instead of inventing something flashy. And that boring choice turned out to be the exact thing that made them perfect for the AI age. While competitors chased novelty, Supabase bet on compatibility. And in a world where machines are now the ones choosing the tools, speaking the common language won. But being the default for millions of apps comes with risks nobody's pricing in yet. Now let's talk about what this actually means for you, for the economy, and for the future of work. First, the obvious one. If anyone can build software by describing it, the value of being a pure coder drops. That's frightening for some engineers, but history says it usually goes the other way. When digital cameras made photography cheap and easy, the number of photographers exploded, not collapsed. The skill shifted from operating the machine to having the eye. Expect the same here. The people who win won't be the ones who type fastest. They'll be the ones with the best ideas and the sharpest judgment about what to build. Second, there's a concentration risk that should make you pause. If a huge slice of the world's new apps all sit on top of Supabase, then Supabase becomes critical infrastructure, like a single power station feeding an entire city. If it goes down, thousands of apps go dark at once. That kind of dependency is powerful and dangerous in equal measure. Third, and this is the part most people overlook entirely, the data. Every vibe-coded app is pouring user information, names, messages, habits into these databases. Most of the people building those apps have no training in security. They don't know how to lock the doors properly. So we are heading into a world with millions of apps, built by amateurs, holding real personal data. The convenience is breathtaking. The exposure is too. So how do you actually use this wave without getting burned? Here's how to actually think about this if you want to ride the wave instead of getting swept under it. Start small and real. Pick one annoying problem in your own life, tracking expenses, organizing a club, managing a side hustle. Open an AI coding tool, describe exactly what you want in plain words, and let it build. When it offers to set up a database, that's the Supabase moment, say yes, and watch it create the storage layer automatically. You'll have a working app faster than you'd believe. Second, learn to steer, not to type. The new skill isn't memorizing syntax. It's describing what you want clearly and spotting when the AI gets it wrong. Be specific. Instead of "make it nice," say "put the save button at the bottom and make the text larger." The clearer your direction, the better the result. Third, and please don't skip this, pay attention to security from day one. Before you let real people use anything you build, ask the AI directly, what data am I storing and who can access it? Make sure logins are protected and private information isn't exposed. This one habit separates a fun toy from a genuine liability. Finally, treat this as a superpower, not a replacement for thinking. The AI builds what you describe, so the quality of your thinking becomes the ceiling on the quality of your app. Curiosity, taste, and clear communication are now the most valuable technical skills you can have. So where does all of this leave us, and what should you watch next? So here's what this all means for you, and what to watch for next. A $10.5 billion valuation for a database company isn't really a story about databases. It's a signal flare. It's the market screaming that the way we make software has fundamentally changed, and it's not going back. The barrier that kept ordinary people out of building for decades just collapsed. And the companies providing the invisible plumbing underneath, Supabase first among them, are quietly becoming some of the most valuable in tech. Here's the takeaway worth carrying with you. We're entering an era where having an idea and being able to describe it clearly is enough to build something real. The gatekeepers are gone. That's genuinely thrilling, and it's also a responsibility, because the same tools that let a teacher build a helpful app let anyone flood the world with sloppy, insecure software. What to watch next? Keep an eye on three things: whether Supabase can stay the default as giants like Google and Microsoft fight back, whether the first big security disaster from a vibe-coded app changes how seriously people take this, and whether that $10.5 billion number looks cheap or crazy a year from now. Either way, the genie is out. The age of describing software into existence has arrived, and the smartest move you can make is to start experimenting today while it's still early. If this opened your eyes, follow for daily AI news. There's a new story breaking every single day.